special kind of friend to have the guts to just go up and ask, like, how is your grief doing today? And not so much, how are you doing? Because I'm always going to answer good, because that's kind of what society like tells you to do, and I'm really well trained, you know?
Really want to like have to tell anybody, because I was like, this shouldn't have to change like my ability to do whatever.
When you're grieving, it affects every single reaction that you have.
Grieving is I think it's kind of trying to honor what was once there that isn't there anymore.
I think it's important to know that grief isn't just sadness.
It is an intense feeling, and I don't think we'll never ever get away with it.
And it's like the cliche, better to have loved and lost than never loved at all. And that's kind of how I feel about my family.
The experience of feeling it was like having the ropes cut from you and falling and just like grasping at what isn't there and feeling like shock at that. And I don't think that breakups are really the same thing. I think that it's a much better situation, so I don't want to come across like I've been through something as traumatic as losing someone to death.
It's not necessarily one big wave that washes over you and then you deal with and slowly kind of pack away. It can come and go in little bits, and while you might have one big wave of grief with everyone at a funeral, that is helpful, but it doesn't make it go away.
You know, I think I was a bio major, so I think in kind of graphs and stats and stuff, and I think about local minima and local maxima, right? And so I think my overall maxima was about probably 6 months out, and then every like 3 or 4 weeks I have a local maxima that's like a little less than the overall maxima.
As I said, I don't even know when somebody dies. I don't even know that until when I go home or when somebody calls me and talks to me about it. So it's very removed. You know, the phone call is a symbol of my isolation, but it's also important because that is the only way that I can get connected to my family, my friends, and to grieve.
I think I've learned how people grieve differently, even over the same situation. Losing a father or mother can culminate in so many different ways. Like, you see people who you thought would have handled this beautifully just shut down, which is what I saw in one of my brothers.
I think I'm trying to learn how to prevent myself from narrativizing or like landscaping my grief or something like that, and being like, oh, it's just gonna grow wild how it's gonna grow. And there are things, again, and I think you were kind of speaking to this with, like, I can recognize triggers. I can be like, okay, like, grief, go wild here. Like, here we have to be a little bit more pruned.
to go into hospice work because of these experiences. And so I wrote about loss in my applications to graduate school.
I feel better now. Not better as in like I am magically over this, but I feel strong enough to continue.
My coworkers, 2 of them came through for me and worked double shifts, and that it meant so much to me.
My boss's dad had recently passed away, and so I knew like he understood what I was going through.
I think every grief story is unique.
You learn a lot about other people.
It's a very good way to like tap into the human consciousness too. You know, you're not alone. There's a community out there.
It still hurts, and it's just this lingering pain that grief leaves you that makes it so hard to deal with.
And so when he died, there was grief, but initially it was also relief. And that's, nobody like told me that was okay to like feel that way.
I understand intellectually that talking about things helps you work through them, but like we've said, it's hard to do.
Yeah, I think I've learned that grief is not a like one time overwhelming feeling.
There are times when I can talk about it calmly, and then there are times when I wake up in the middle of the night and just cry a lot. And it doesn't bring me down to the point where I feel like I can't go on, but I do feel like I'm still struggling with it.
Depending on how you cope or how much grief you've experienced, I don't think losing someone ever gets easier. But I think knowing how you deal with it and how you respond to the way your body is feeling changes over time.
Since I had suppressed it, it had compounded itself in depression and anxiety, and so I started having a lot of issues that had been happening the last 2 years of college, but I didn't think about it really. I just kept pushing everything down.
So I just had to move away. And I felt like that was the only way that I can really get over that grief, which was the last thing I would have thought if you were talking to me, like when I was in the hospital.
I don't know, it makes me feel better to know that like it's not just me.
This isn't about power. Like the person who grieves in this way and is accelerated through this process in this way is not like, how do we make sure that we like societally and culturally don't give that person more power than the person who's like, my grief is going to take years and it's going to be slow and creeping, and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to continue living my life. It's just like the grief sticks longer.
You know, as long as you still love that person, the grief will never goes away.
As I think about how people will grieve me,
when I'm old and close to the grave myself, I will have a garden, because I realized I have begun collecting dead.
but I think grief is something that is just the other side of love.
This project is supported in part by an award from the National Endowment for the Arts, on the web at arts.gov.